Welcome back to ZE Coins. Today, we are stepping deep into one of the most widely collected coins in the world, the 1983 D Mint Mark Jefferson 5-cent nickel. It may look like an ordinary piece of pocket change, but as we'll discover together, this coin has a fascinating story, a surprising place in modern numismatics, and a market value that can astonish collectors when the right combination of condition and rarity comes together. Let's start by returning to the early 1980s. The year 1983 was a unique moment in the United States. The nation was recovering from a deep recession, technology was blossoming into an unstoppable force, and the Reagan era was reshaping politics, culture, and the economy. In the middle of all this, the U.S. Mint in Denver was churning out millions of 5-cent pieces, coins that Americans barely glanced at as they jingled in their pockets. But collectors today know that a coin's true importance often becomes clear only years later, when time, scarcity, and condition transform an everyday object into something worth seeking out. The Jefferson nickel series itself traces back to 1938, when the familiar profile of Thomas Jefferson replaced the earlier Buffalo nickel. For decades this design remained almost unchanged, making subtle variations in strike quality, mint marks, and date all the more important for collectors hoping to find something special. By the time 1983 rolled around, the mint had been battling an issue that would forever mark the coins of the early 80s, worn dies and imperfect strikes caused by back-to-back years of extremely heavy production. Many coins from this era came out looking mushy, flat, and riddled with surface flaws. This is where the 1983 D nickel gains its unexpected twist. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of nickels that year, but only a small portion ended up with sharp detail, clean surfaces, and a crisp mint-state appearance that collectors crave. Most coins saw years of circulation, collecting scratches, nicks, and dull tones along the way. Finding a pristine example is much harder than the massive mintage number suggests. Collectors quickly discovered that high grades, especially mint state 66 and above, are remarkably scarce for this date. The camera zooms closer to a coin under a bright numismatic lamp. The narrator continues. Let's talk about what you actually see when you hold a 1983 D nickel. The obverse shows the familiar profile of Thomas Jefferson, his hair tied back, his expression calm and reserved. Look closely at the details, the sharpness of the hairline, the clarity around the cheekbone, the crispness of the motto and date. On many lower quality strikes, these details appear softly rendered, but on a well-struck example, they stand out brilliantly. On the reverse, Monticello sits with its stately shape and strict geometric form. The steps in front of the building are one of the most significant markers of quality. Collectors often judge Jefferson nickels by the clarity of those steps, referring to the highest standard as full steps. A 1983 D nickel that displays full, uninterrupted steps is a rarity, and these gems elevate the value dramatically. But why is the 1983 D specifically such a challenge in top condition? To understand that, we need to think about the mint's priorities during that decade. The early 80s were a time of cost-cutting and intense production demands. The mint used dies longer than usual, pushing them through more cycles and more stress. As dies wear out, they lose their ability to produce sharp, detailed coins. The result is a flood of nickels with weaker strikes. Additionally, because America's economy was speeding up, coins circulated rapidly and harshly. Few nickels had the chance to survive untouched, resting quietly rather than being thrown into change jars, vending machines, and store counters. So, when you find a high-grade 1983 D nickel, one with bright luster, minimal marks, and crisp detail, it is essentially a survivor. A standout from a sea of ordinary pieces. And that scarcity is what drives collector demand. Now, let's move into the heart of this story: value. What is this coin worth in today's market, and what makes collectors willing to pay a premium for circulated coins, those that have lived their lives in pockets and purses? Their value generally sits close to face value, perhaps a small premium if the coin is lightly worn. But when we move up into the realm of uncirculated coins, the picture changes dramatically. Lower mint state grades such as MS-60 through MS-63 may only sell for modest amounts, but once you reach higher levels, particularly MS-65 and MS-66, the price can rise sharply. And for those coins that grade even higher, examples that stand at the very top of the population charts, often displaying brilliant luster, clean fields, and remarkable strike sharpness, the value becomes truly impressive. Collectors love to chase these top-grade nickels because they represent the best possible version of a common coin. It's not about rarity of date, it's about rarity of condition. Only a tiny fraction of 1983D nickels ever come close to these elite grades, making the chase both exciting and competitive. In fact, auction houses have seen spirited bidding wars over the finest examples, with enthusiastic collectors pushing prices far beyond typical expectations for a modern-era nickel. The narrator pauses as the camera cuts to slow-motion footage of a gloved hand rotating a pristine 1983D nickel under a beam of white light. The fields shimmer like liquid metal. The steps of Monticello stand crisp and defined, but here is something even more interesting: the value of the coin does not rely solely on grade. Some collectors look for unusual die varieties, small imperfections, or anomalies created during the striking process. While the 1983D nickel does not have an officially recognized major variety like double dies or repunched mint marks that appear in other years, subtle anomalies do exist. These small quirks, such as minor die cracks, tiny displacement lines, or slightly misaligned strikes, can add fascination and value for the numismatist who loves discovering the unexpected. Another aspect that helps fuel demand is nostalgia. Many collectors grew up in the 1980s, and there is something undeniably charming about revisiting the coinage of one's childhood. A well-preserved 1983D nickel reminds people of an era of arcade machines, cassette tapes, early computers, and the colorful glow of late-night American television. This emotional connection helps keep interest alive in even the humble nickel. The script now shifts to the practical side. The narrator leans closer to the microphone. That if you have a 1983D nickel sitting in a jar, wallet, or collection, how can you tell whether it's valuable? Start with the basics. Look at the metal's surface. Does it retain original mint luster? Is the shine bright and uninterrupted? Next, examine both sides for contact marks, small scratches or dings caused by coins colliding during production or circulation. A few tiny marks are normal, but too many will drop the grade. Then, scrutinize the strike quality. On the obverse, check Jefferson's jawline and cheek area. On the reverse, focus on the steps of Monticello. Are they clear, separated, and sharply outlined? If so, you may have a high-end example. If the coin looks spectacular to the naked eye, consider having it graded by a professional service. Certification provides confidence to potential buyers and protects the coin within a sealed holder, preserving it for decades to come. Finally, as collectors know, the true excitement comes from the marketplace. When the rarest and most flawless examples appear for sale, they can achieve extraordinary results. The highest quality 1983D Jefferson nickels have sold for strong sums at auction, capturing the attention of coin enthusiasts around the world. And so, as our camera once again settles on that shining nickel, the story of this seemingly ordinary coin becomes clear. It is a reminder that even the most common objects can hold hidden value. That history can rest quietly in your hand. That rarity does not always come from age alone but from condition, survival, and the careful eye of those who appreciate the beauty of numismatics. We dive into the coin itself. Let's roll back the clock and recreate the world that produced it. Imagine the United States during the mid-1980s, a nation adjusting to rapid technological change, shifting global relationships, and a growing fascination with innovation. Ronald Reagan was president, MTV was rewriting pop culture, and the American economy was experiencing both triumphs and turbulence. Gas prices were climbing, families were adapting to new kinds of workplaces, and people were beginning to look at the world through a lens of rising possibilities. While these massive cultural shifts were happening, the U.S. Mint quietly continued its long-standing tradition, producing millions upon millions of coins that would flow through everyday life. A nickel might not grab headlines, but almost every single American touched one. And among these small coins were the Jefferson nickels minted in Denver in 1986, coins that today are attracting attention from collectors for reasons far more interesting than their face value. The backbone of the design. Understanding the Jefferson nickel. To appreciate what makes a specific year or mint mark special, it helps to understand the deeper story behind the Jefferson nickel itself. First released in 1938, the Jefferson 5-cent coin replaced the Buffalo nickel, marking a shift from the imagery of the American West to the more formal portrait of a founding father. Felix Schlag's design introduced the familiar profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and the stately facade of Monticello on the reverse. Over the decades, the design saw subtle updates, but the essential structure remained recognizable. When you hold a 1986 nickel, you're not just holding currency, you're holding a design that carried the nation through wartime shortages, post-war prosperity, cultural revolutions, and dramatic political eras. In 1986, no special variety was officially released by the mint. There was no silver composition, no wartime alloy, no dramatic redesign. And yet, collectors today are discovering that some examples of the 1986 D. Jefferson nickel deserve attention for the exact opposite reason. Their rarity lies not in what they were meant to be, but in the few that survived in beautiful, high-grade condition. What makes the 1986 D nickel stand out? The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels during 1986. Most of them circulated widely, passing through gas stations, grocery store counters, laundromats, vending machines, and pockets across the country. As a result, the overwhelming majority were scratched, dinged, worn down, and eventually tossed aside as simple change. That's where the hidden opportunity lies. Coins that enter circulation rarely survive in pristine condition. Finding a high-grade example, one with sharp details, fresh luster, and no distracting marks, can be surprisingly difficult. That's why collectors today are willing to pay significant amounts for 1986 D. Jefferson nickels that remain in top-tier condition. The irony is delicious. A coin that practically everyone overlooked is now becoming a sought-after treasure. Exploring the details, what collectors look for. If you've ever examined a nickel under bright light or with a magnifying glass, you know the smallest details matter. And when it comes to the 1986 D, certain features help determine whether a coin falls into the common pile or the special category. Strike quality, the sharpness of Jefferson's jawline, the clarity of his hair details, and the precision of Monticello's steps all help determine value. Coins with crisp strikes are rare for this year. Luster, mint state coins should glow with their original minty sheen. Many 1986 D nickels lost this luster due to handling, oxidation, or rough storage. Surface marks, even tiny nicks, bag marks, or abrasions can drop the value dramatically. The fewer distractions, the higher the grade. The mint mark D, located to the right of Monticello, the small letter D, connects the coin to the Denver Mint. For some collectors, certain years from Denver carry special significance because of strike variations. Eye appeal, collectors love coins that simply look good. A strong strike, bright luster, and clean surfaces create that wow factor. Only a small number of 1986 D. Jefferson nickels remain in exceptional condition. And when one surfaces, collectors take notice. A journey from ordinary to extraordinary. Imagine someone in 1986 receiving this nickel as part of their change after buying a soda. Maybe it sat in their pocket for days, maybe it slipped into a drawer, or maybe, by pure chance, it spent decades tucked safely away in a roll of coins, untouched. Fast forward to today, the same nickel, protected from scratches and wear, might suddenly reveal itself as a sharply struck, lustrous, nearly flawless survivor. That transformation, from pocket change to collectible treasure, is part of what makes numismatics so fascinating. Coins are historical artifacts that lived real lives. They traveled. They were handled. They were part of everyday routines. And the rare few that escaped the grind of circulation now have stories that collectors are eager to discover. Why many collectors overlook 1980s nickels. You might wonder why a coin from the 1980s, an era not usually considered bold in numismatic terms, could be worth anything above face value. The answer lies in perception. Many hobbyists dismiss common-date nickels from this decade, assuming there's nothing special about them. Most were indeed produced in enormous quantities. But high-quality survivors are anything but common. During the 1980s, coin collecting wasn't as widespread among younger generations, and fewer people were setting aside rolls of coins. Additionally, nickels are sturdy workhorses. They tend to circulate longer than dimes or quarters. That extended wear makes pristine examples of specific years incredibly difficult to find. So while millions were minted, precious few remain in exceptional condition today. The collector's experience, searching, grading, and discovering. If you've ever searched through rolls of coins, you know the thrill that comes with spotting something different, a shine that stands out, a detail that looks sharper than usual, a feeling that you found something others overlooked. The 1986 D. Jefferson nickel offers exactly that kind of treasure hunt. Collectors send these nickels to professional grading services to authenticate their condition. Once graded, a coin may earn a label like Mint State 64, 65, or even higher. The real excitement comes when a rare top-tier grade appears. Those are the examples that command meaningful value, and here is where the 1986 D quietly surprises people. A surprisingly small number have earned outstanding grades, and their scarcity drives demand. A story of American craftsmanship and everyday history. When you hold a 1986 D. Jefferson nickel, you're not just holding currency. You're holding a piece of Reagan-era history, an example of American minting craftsmanship, a survival from an overlooked era, a potential high-grade rarity, a coin that symbolizes how everyday objects can grow in significance over time. Coins are silent storytellers, and the 1986 D nickel tells a tale about how value isn't always obvious at first glance. Sometimes, what looks ordinary carries hidden importance, just waiting for someone with curiosity and patience to uncover it. Closing thoughts. Letting the coin speak for itself as the camera zooms in on the nickel one last time. The soft glow catches the contours of Jefferson's face and the crisp lines of Monticello. This coin, once just a simple 5-cent piece from 1986, now stands as a symbol of forgotten treasures waiting to be appreciated. Maybe you'll check your old change jar after this. Maybe you'll start examining those unnoticed coins in your pocket. Who knows? The next rare survivor might be hiding in your own home. We're about to explore one of those charming stories, the curious and surprisingly engaging world behind the 1998 P. Jefferson 5-cent nickel, a coin so ordinary at first glance that most people would never guess the layers of interest hiding just beneath its surface. Before we dive into value charts and collector premiums, imagine holding one in your hand. The nickel feels familiar, the weight, the thickness, the smooth, slightly muted shine of a copper-nickel alloy. It's a coin people drop into change jars, use for vending machines, or pass across gas station counters without a second thought. Yet each one carries the face of Thomas Jefferson, a president known for ideas, for complexity, for contradictions. And on the reverse, there's his Virginia home, Monticello, one of those places where history feels alive the moment you see it carved into the metal. For decades, Jefferson nickels have been circulating through the American economy, acting as everyday companions to millions of transactions. But coins minted around the late 20th century, especially during the 1990s, hold a unique place in U.S. numismatics. It was a transitional period for the mint, a time when old engravings met new minting technologies, and when slight variations, die deterioration, and subtle design quirks started to catch the attention of collectors. The 1998 P. Jefferson nickel sits right in that era, quietly accumulating its own fanbase. The P Mint mark, tucked to the right of Jefferson's portrait, marks it as a product of the Philadelphia Mint. Although Philadelphia is the oldest U.S. mint facility, coins from this location are often the most abundant in certain modern years. However, abundant doesn't always mean boring. A surprising number of collectors look closely at late 90s nickels for minor die breaks, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, and other charming oddities that can elevate a common nickel into a conversation piece. To appreciate the 1998 P. Jefferson nickel, it helps to take a step back and understand how the Jefferson nickel itself became such a time-tested element of American currency. When it was introduced in 1938, it replaced the Buffalo nickel, one of the most visually iconic coins ever made. Critics at the time wondered whether anything could match the rugged charm of the old design. Yet the Jefferson nickel carved its own legacy, thanks largely to its balance, simple, clean lines, a dignified portrait, and a building closely tied to American history. By the time 1998 arrived, the Jefferson nickel had already been produced for 60 years. For many Americans, it was a part of everyday life long before any thought was given to collecting. Maybe that's part of its magic. Plenty of collectible coins were designed from the beginning to be special, but coins like the 1998 p nickel were never meant for displays, velvet cases, or coin fairs. They were built for wallets, pockets, and purse zippers. Their journey from utilitarian objects to collectible curiosities is what makes them so captivating. Now picture the presses running at the Philadelphia Mint in 1998, enormous machinery stamping out nickel after nickel with breathtaking speed. Billions of circulating coins were struck that year, some flawless, some with tiny blemishes, others with quirks that went unnoticed until months or years later. A few of these nickels may have rolled right into Federal Reserve bags, then into banks, then into the hands of people buying a newspaper or a candy bar. Some ended up in jars. Some in drawers. Some on sidewalks. And some, surprisingly, ended up in collections, preserved in beautiful condition by the sheer luck of being pulled from circulation early. Collectors who search for late 90s Jefferson nickels today often talk about the importance of condition. The difference between a nickel worth face value and one worth a premium usually comes down to detail, the sharpness of the steps on Monticello, the crispness of Jefferson's hair, the absence of scratches, marks, or dullness. A well-preserved 1998 p nickel can look almost like it was minted yesterday, shimmering with a fresh, cool glow. What makes this particular year so interesting isn't necessarily a dramatic historical event, but rather the charm of discovering quality where most people expect none. Many collectors describe searching through thousands of nickels before finding one with strong, full steps, a term referring to the visibility of the architectural steps on Monticello's front. Full steps coins, especially from the 1990s, often earn admiration for their rarity relative to the massive number of coins produced. There's also something deeply nostalgic about coins from the late 90s. It was an era of dial-up internet, VHS tapes, pagers, early cell phones, and the last years before the millennium brought sweeping changes. For Americans who grew up during that period, a 1998 nickel isn't just a coin, it's a tiny metal snapshot of a world that felt slower, simpler, and maybe even a little more hopeful. Holding one can bring back old memories, chrome payphones, arcade machines, the clatter of coin return slots, or even the feeling of buying a soda for less than $1. When discussing value, it's important to understand that collectors don't evaluate coins only by scarcity. They also consider the story, the condition, the strike quality, the eye appeal, and even the coin's role in the larger narrative of U.S. minting history. The 1998 p nickel sits at the crossroads of old and new, classic design, modern minting technology, and a transitional era of American coin collecting. As you imagine this humble coin's journey, picture someone today discovering a beautiful example of the 1998 p nickel in a pocket of old laundry, or tucked in a drawer from a decades-old move, or even embedded in a child's coin collection passed down through family generations. Maybe it's been sitting untouched for years, waiting to be rediscovered. Someone flips it over, admires Monticello under a bright light, and realizes that this everyday object has the potential to be worth more than its tiny denomination implies. Some collectors seek out proofs from the San Francisco Mint. Others hunt for pristine business strike examples from Philadelphia or Denver. Still others look for oddities, the double dies, the filled mint marks, the misaligned strikes. The 1998 p nickel, although not rare in the traditional sense, has inspired plenty of treasure hunts among hobbyists, especially those who enjoy the thrill of finding value in coins that most people ignore. And then there's the philosophical charm, the quiet lesson many collectors talk about, that value can hide in the most ordinary places. A nickel might be passed along carelessly for years, its significance overlooked until someone with curiosity and patience recognizes its beauty. Collecting coins teaches people to see differently, to gaze at an object that millions have held and find something extraordinary in its smallest details. Imagine filming these scenes for a YouTube video, slow pans over graded holders, macro close-ups of Monticello's tiny architectural lines, gleaming surfaces reflecting soft studio lights. A narrator speaks about the late 1990s, the minting process, the quirks of die wear, and the excitement of collectors who discover high-grade examples in unexpected places. The story feels bigger than the coin itself. It becomes a tale of time, of craftsmanship, of America's evolving currency, and of the treasure-hunting spirit that keeps numismatics alive. As the video builds toward its conclusion, viewers lean in, eager to know what makes the 1998 P nickel worth not just study, but actual money. And that's when the narrator brings the story full circle, revealing how collectors prize the finest, most flawless examples from this year, especially those with crisp detail, original luster, and preserved surfaces. We are taking a deep dive into the 2000 P Jefferson 5-cent nickel, a coin that may appear modern and common but has hidden layers that make it fascinating for collectors and enthusiasts of American currency. When we talk about the year 2000 in the world of American coinage, it sits in an interesting transitional period. The U.S. Mint was entering the new millennium with updated technology, improved quality control, and millions of fresh collectors brought in by the wildly popular state quarter program. Even though nickels at the time weren't getting the same spotlight as quarters, they still played their own role in the evolution of American pocket change. The Jefferson nickel, originally introduced in 1938, continued its long legacy into the new century, proudly displaying the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his historic Monticello home on the reverse. The 2000 P nickel, minted in Philadelphia, is particularly notable because it was struck at a time when mintages were extremely high due in part to economic demand and increased circulation needs. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of these coins, and because of that, many people assume that every 2000 P nickel must be worth only its face value. But in numismatics, value is not just determined by how many coins exist, it's about condition, strike quality, minting anomalies, and the market forces that shape collector interest. And that's where things get interesting. Over the years, collectors have grown more attentive to the subtle differences between common circulation strikes and high-grade specimens. The 2000 P nickel is a perfect example of a coin that is widely available, yet surprisingly challenging to find in the uppermost mint state grades with flawless surfaces. Most coins from circulation develop small nicks, scratches, bag marks, or slight wear, and even coins taken directly from bank rolls can show traces of contact from the minting and transport process. Because of this, the population of coins graded at the absolute top levels remains relatively small compared to the massive number originally minted. For collectors who send coins to professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, a high-grade 2000 P Jefferson nickel can command real attention. It isn't just about rarity but about condition rarity, the concept that even a coin produced in huge numbers can become valuable because very few survive in pristine state. When a single nickel emerges with shiny, sharply struck features, clean fields, and crisp details, it instantly stands out. Under magnification, professional graders look for every tiny imperfection. If none are found, that coin becomes part of a very exclusive group. Another aspect that elevates this particular nickel's desirability is the presence of die variations and small minting anomalies that sometimes appear within the series. While the 2000 P nickel does not have a famously dramatic error tied to it, like the well-known doubled dies of earlier decades, there are still minor die cracks, die chips, and slight alignment issues that collectors enjoy discovering. These small quirks give each coin character and help enthusiasts feel like treasure hunters searching for something special hidden in everyday change. The Jefferson nickel design itself, which remained unchanged until the redesign in 2004, also holds sentimental value for many coin collectors. The design by Felix Schlag had already existed for over 60 years by the time the year 2000 pieces were minted. The portrait of Jefferson is dignified, straightforward, and iconic, while the depiction of Monticello on the reverse remains a highly recognizable part of American coinage history. Many collectors appreciate the classic version of the Jefferson nickel, especially in the final years before the Westward Journey redesign temporarily replaced it. In some ways, the 2000 P nickel represents the closing chapter of the classic era of the series. For new collectors, the 2000 P nickel often becomes an entry point into the Jefferson series because it is modern, accessible, and easy to understand. A person can pull one from pocket change and feel the spark of curiosity that leads to a lifelong hobby. They might look at the details of Jefferson's hair, or the tiny lettering spelling out Monticello, or the sharply raised steps on the coin's reverse. The steps are particularly important, by the way, because fully defined steps are considered a sign of a superior strike. Collectors sometimes talk about full steps examples, which are nickels with sharply struck and clearly separated steps on the Monticello building. These coins tend to be more desirable because they represent exceptional craftsmanship from the mint, but, of course, the heart of today's video is the question so many viewers come for: what is the 2000p Jefferson nickel actually worth? How much can it sell for, and what should collectors look out for if they find one in their own collection? While most circulated examples will still trade for face value or slightly above, it is the high-grade pieces, those graded by a professional service at the upper end of the mint state scale, that attract notable prices on the collector market. These top-quality specimens, especially those designated with full steps, have been known to achieve impressive auction results. The reason is simple: high-grade modern nickels are far scarcer than people expect, and competition among collectors who specialize in Jefferson nickels is surprisingly strong. One of the factors that contribute to value is eye appeal. Eye appeal refers to the overall attractiveness of the coin, the luster, the brightness, the color, and the crispness of the details. A coin with beautiful reflective surfaces or a brilliant mint luster tends to stand out dramatically compared to dull or spotted pieces. Some 2000p nickels even develop subtle toning over time, with soft gold, blue, or violet shades appearing along the edges. Toned coins can be especially desirable if the colors are naturally developed and visually appealing, adding another layer of character to an already attractive specimen. Collectors also pay close attention to strike quality. Not all coins are struck with the same level of pressure or precision. Some nickels from this year exhibit softer details around Jefferson's cheekbones or weaker steps on Monticello. Others, however, show strong, crisp designs that indicate a fresh die was used at the moment of minting. Coins with these desirable qualities climb higher in collector rankings and can justify higher sale prices, but beyond the technical aspects, there is a deeper appeal that keeps collectors interested in coins like the 2000p Jefferson nickel. It is the experience of discovery. Looking through bank rolls, coin jars, old change collections, or inherited coin albums can feel like searching for hidden treasure. Even modern coins can carry stories embedded in their metal, stories of where they've been, who has handled them, and how they survived in such extraordinary condition. Many collectors vividly remember the excitement of finding a high-quality nickel in circulation or purchasing a roll from a bank only to uncover a flawless gem at the very end, and that brings us to the emotional heart of collecting: the joy of connection. Each coin links us to a shared history, a shared economy, and a shared national identity. Whether someone collects nickels, quarters, silver dollars, or any other denomination, they often feel a sense of connection to the past through these small pieces of metal that pass through countless hands before ending up in a carefully curated collection. The year 2000, sitting right at the turn of a century, adds another layer of symbolic meaning to the coins produced during that time. Has captured the attention of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike: the 2007p mint Jefferson 5-cent nickel. At first glance, it seems like an ordinary coin, the kind that might sit in a jar of spare change, forgotten until someone needs a few cents for a parking meter. But when you take a closer look, this piece reveals layers of artistry, hidden potential, and a surprising market value that lifts it far above the realm of pocket change. To truly appreciate this particular coin, we must first journey briefly into the story of the Jefferson nickel itself. Introduced in 1938, the Jefferson nickel was created to honor the third President of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, writer, inventor, statesman, and visionary. The coin replaced the buffalo nickel, a beloved design that had grown difficult to strike with consistent clarity. Jefferson's likeness, sculpted by Felix Schlag, found a permanent home on the obverse, while Monticello, Jefferson's iconic Virginia estate, took its place on the reverse. Over the years, the coin would undergo subtle changes, shifts in design, wartime composition formulas, and commemorative variations. But the Jefferson nickel endured as a cornerstone of American coinage. By the time 2007 arrived, the Jefferson nickel had already been updated with the modern portrait designed by Jamie Franke, presenting a more forward-facing Jefferson with a lifelike sense of depth and expression. The 2007 edition had moved beyond the Westward Journey commemorative series that had dominated the earlier years of the decade, returning to a stable, consistent design that collectors have since grown to appreciate for its clean, refined look. Yet even though millions of these coins poured from the presses of the United States Mint, not all were created equal. And it is the tiny, precise mint mark, the letter P, for Philadelphia, that gives today's featured coin its identity. The Philadelphia Mint produced an enormous number of 2007 Jefferson nickels, over 640 million, a number so vast that it makes any one coin seem insignificant at first glance. These coins slipped into circulation in grocery stores, gas stations, classrooms, cafeterias, and cash registers across the country. But while the majority served everyday use, a handful survived with exceptional preservation. These untouched examples, coins that escaped the scratches, dents, and abrasions of circulation, are the ones that have now become sought after in the numismatic world. What makes an ordinary nickel suddenly elevate into something worth collecting, studying, and preserving? Much of it comes down to condition, rarity and high grade, and the story hidden within the metal itself. Even though hundreds of millions were minted, the number that remain in pristine, untouched condition is extremely small. Coins with flawless luster, sharp strike definition, and virtually no contact marks are graded at the highest levels by professional grading services such as PCGS and NGC. To achieve a top grade like MS-67 or MS-68, the coin must display exceptional detail: Jefferson's cheek, the subtle contours of his hair, the smooth fields around his portrait, the sharp steps and columns of Monticello on the reverse. Everything must appear crisp and nearly perfect. Collectors love the challenge of searching through rolls of bank-wrapped nickels or inherited jars of old coins, hoping for one of these high-grade survivors. There's a kind of treasure hunt thrill to the process, because most examples will fall short of the highest grades. The journey toward finding a gem is full of anticipation. Some coins will appear promising at first, only to reveal small nicks under a magnifying glass. Others might possess vibrant luster but lack the full strike that advanced collectors look for. Yet every once in a while, a stunning example reveals itself, sharp, shining, almost glowing with mint-fresh brilliance. Those are the coins that specialists immediately set aside for grading. The 2007 P. Jefferson nickel also draws interest because it represents a return to design stability after several years of changes. From 2004 to 2006, the Westward Journey series had transformed the nickel with commemorative reverse designs celebrating the Lewis and Clark expedition. When the series concluded, the Mint introduced the new forward-facing Jefferson portrait that we still see today. For collectors, 2007 marks the first full year in which the modern portrait appeared without a paired commemorative design. This gives the coin an important place in the timeline of U.S. modern coinage, symbolizing the establishment of the style still circulating today. Even though most examples of this coin remain worth face value in circulated condition, the premium versions, those rare pieces with exceptional eye appeal, carry value far beyond their 5-cent denomination. Collectors look for clean surfaces, satiny or brilliant luster, and minimal imperfections. Some nickel planchets from this era show attractive die polishing lines, subtle toning patterns, or unusually strong strikes, all of which can enhance a coin's desirability. Light toning can often elevate a coin's charm: soft gold at the rims, delicate hints of lavender or cobalt, or gentle amber hues that have developed naturally over years of careful storage. When this toning blends with the clean fields and sharp design of the Jefferson portrait, the result is a coin with character, a piece that stands apart from the millions of ordinary examples. Collectors appreciate that each toned coin is unique, almost like a fingerprint of history. The reverse of the coin, featuring Monticello, remains one of the most iconic building depictions in American numismatics. On the 2007 P nickel, the steps of Monticello are often a major focus for collectors. The so-called full steps designation, awarded when the steps appear fully struck and distinct, can significantly increase a coin's desirability. Although finding full steps examples from this year is not impossible, it remains enough of a challenge to keep collectors eagerly searching. For many people, the thrill of coin collecting lies in moments like this, discovering beauty in something small, ordinary, and easily overlooked. The Jefferson nickel is one of the most humble circulating coins in America, yet every so often, it reminds us that extraordinary treasures can be hiding in plain sight. The 2007 nickel serves as a perfect example, a coin common in circulation but surprisingly valuable in its finest forms, a coin that teaches us to pay closer attention to the change that passes through our hands. This is why collectors often encourage beginners to learn the basics of grading. Even a casual understanding of what separates a lightly circulated coin from a near-perfect mint-state example can make a dramatic difference. Imagine someone casually tossing a brilliant, untouched nickel into a vending machine, unaware that its value far exceeds the snack they are buying. Stories like that happen more often than you might expect, simply because people overlook the potential hidden in modern coins. For those entering the world of coin collecting, the 2007 Jefferson nickel offers the perfect combination of accessibility and excitement. It is inexpensive to search for, widely available, and approachable for beginners, yet it contains enough hidden gems to captivate even experienced collectors. Many specialists consider high-grade examples from the mid-2000s to be some of the most underrated coins in